All good. Beautiful, beautiful.
Okay.
So, welcome,
Okay.
everybody. Welcome to another Training Tuesday. Just going to hit mute here just to avoid background noise. So, welcome. Today, we're going to cover SLAs. I'm sure many of you, if you haven't already made use of them, they're really key. I'm sure you may be interested in implementing them in the future. So, our agenda for this session is, of course, to start off with a welcome and to do some housekeeping, Ticket Training Tuesday related, where you can find the schedule, how you can interact and provide feedback, an introduction to what we're going to cover, and we'll have a three-part demo. So you'll get to see the setup side of things, then you'll get to see a few automations of them in practice, like getting to see how you can send out notifications with your SLAs, how you can have a ticket updated as well. And also, we're going to cover the reporting, but just briefly, as in a few weeks, we're going to have a ticket training session on Power BI dashboard. So I'm sure that will be covered there as well. And then, of course, at the end, we can have some questions. All right, so if you don't know already, my name is James Nurma. I'm part of the help team, so my main priority is just being as helpful as I can, always available. Alrighty, so let's do some housekeeping. So this session is indeed interactive, so please feel free to raise your hand physically, virtually, or call out as well whenever you have a question. Feedback is also very, very welcome. So if you can feel free to provide some on the call, or you can drop an email to help@tikit.ai as well. And you can see the schedule of future and past Ticket Training Tuesday sessions on that link there. I'll get it posted in the chat as well, just in case you want to see. Okay, yep, so it's in there. Or you can search Ticket Training Tuesdays on any browser and it will pop up there. Alrighty, so SLAs, I split them into two. Of course, there's many ways and many good things that they provide. So these are service level agreements. So they're woven really nicely into Ticket. And the first purpose that we're going to talk about is how they help you to stay on track. So you can choose, as you'll see in a moment, as we set the SLA up, you're able to choose properties and operators and dates or relative dates, as we'll explore later, to really get specific, get only the specific tickets that you want to home in on and monitor. So it really helps you to um, really check things on a case by case basis and really zoom in to what's going on with your processes so you can keep things sharp. And of course, as mentioned before, we'll be able to pair these SLAs with automations and we can show a demo of that. And some uses of that are to notify your agents, whether that be through Teams um, or via email. And we'll have a session on notifications in 2 weeks. So feel free to check back in if you're interested in that. You can also update tickets. We'll have an example for that as well. And also pass on messages to requesters, which is really nice to do that via automation so that they know that they haven't been forgotten. And you can also measure performance using these SLAs in Ticket. So you can use Excel and the Power BI integration um, to do this. And I'll show briefly what that looks like towards the end. And another reminder that Power BI dashboards will be covered in the future. I'm not sure if it's exactly 2 weeks, but if you click on that link, then you'll be able to see when exactly it is. And as you'll see at the end, when we show those reports, you can really change these things to how you would like them. So you can see the stats by assignee, team, category, or any way that you like. It's very, very useful. So we'll move on to our demo. let me stop sharing. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have so far. Share this, and we'll share this one. Alrighty, let's drag this down here. Alrighty, so we've gone to web.tikit.ai, settings, then SLA, as we can see at the top here. So here we can see how to add them. So you can see at the top, plus new SLA, and that will take us to this screen here. Very quick, very responsive, very lovely to interact with. And then you can also see the name of it here, and you can get a count of all the tickets that are related to those SLAs. So this security one is a test one, so there aren't any tickets related to it at the moment for me. But you can see those numbers there, which is lovely. And then you can also see how many tickets are in the breached status of that SLA, which is good to have as well. You can see its created date, and here you can also toggle them on and off, which is great. It's just easy to do. You don't have to click into it and do it. It's all there for you. So let's click in and see a bit more on how we can set these up. So here, of course, we can select what name we want it to have. And this is another version of that toggle that we saw outside of it. We can just enable it or disable it here. And also with these statuses, you can select whether that ticket has to have been in a particular status for it to be considered for this SLA. So for me, I just have active and pending, and my pending one is so that whenever a ticket needs more information to be actioned, it might need an approval, it might need more information from the end user. I have that pending one there. So if I exclude that and just focus on the active ones, then I'll make sure that the wrong ones aren't being triggered. And of course, all of your custom statuses will be added here, and you can interact with those as well. So adding additional criteria is optional, but it's always nice to make things a bit more linear. As we saw in our earlier training session, I think it was a couple of months ago, you can see here we've got and or. We've got this choice here. So you can think of this as an any or all. So if I have it on all and I add more filters, then if this one is met or that one is met, then it will trigger. But if I select it to and, then all of them, it has to meet all of them to be triggered. So of course, yeah, that was considered on our earlier training session, so you can always revisit that there as well. Also, we have approaching breach versus SLA breached, and you can see what these look like on the tickets up here. I've got some screenshots of what they'll look like. So here we've got satisfied. So this is one state. So let's say, for example, I've set up an SLA. Let's say if I set it up to say the priority is the highest. Let's say it had to have that, but then in my SLA it came in, but then after review I noticed that it's not so important. Then I moved it back down, then that SLA would have been satisfied. It's no longer needed there. So it's a good one to have. Here we can see what it looks like when it's active. So when it hasn't approached a breach, when it hasn't been breached, it will still let you know that it's active there, and it tells you more details about it in here as well, which is good to see. And here we can see the approaching breach. So it's orange there. So these are all visible for your agents. You can see what's going on there as well. And then here's what the breach looks like. You can't miss it. And it's all in red, and it gives you the details of that as well, and when it was breached, which is key. So that's what they all look like. Let's go back here. And a key thing to note as well, let me go back here. You can have multiple SLAs acting on a particular ticket at the same time if it meets all of those different criterias for each SLA. The most that I've seen on one while I've been testing is 6, um, but feel free to explore and see if you can add any more there. But I'm sure you may not need so many if you get really linear with your configuration. But there's some key information to note as well. So now let's take a deeper dive into these properties here. So if we just clear this, these properties are all very interesting ones. One nice one is request here. So this is good because it's another word for title. So let's say in your environment, you have a lot of tickets that come in that maybe for new hires, they all say new hire, or they have the department in the title. You could say contains new hire or contains onboarding, and every ticket that has that in the title, it will trigger for that one. So that's really nice to have. And then usually on these ones, on most of them that aren't dates related, let's say for assignee, for the operator, you have these four. You have equal, not equal, is null, it is not null. And that's how it will be typically. But for due date, modified date, and created date, it's a bit different. You have the earlier than, later than, earlier than, or equal to. Again, this is similar to our automation process, so we won't focus too much on that. But the way we can apply it here is very nice. So if I went earlier than or equal to, and today is the 13th, so if I had a ticket that was due on the 15th, I could say if this is due earlier than 2 days from now, then I could notify the analyst and say when it gets to about 1 day's reach of that due date, it's approaching the breach. And when we arrive there at that 2 days, it's been breached. And then we can either drop a notification or update the ticket in a certain way that further as well. And it'll be similar for modified date and created date. So you can get really creative with those. The relative date function is really nice to have there. Okay, so I'm going to show my automation. Do we have any questions on this before we move on? You're good. Alrighty, lovely. So I'll go to my automations. All right, now let's see what this looks like. We'll give a brief overview of it. So now to set up an automation related to your SLA, you'll do on an event, you'll do SLA, and then you have these three options. Added or modified, I haven't used this much in my environment, but if you have a need for it, you can feel free to use that. But for the main two that I've been using is added and modified. So for added, let's say for example I have an SLA, which I do have. I'll show you very briefly. I have an SLA here that is set to identify high priority tickets, value 1 high, and those that are active as well. I don't want any of those pending ones in the mix here. So if I have that SLA there, when a high priority ticket comes in that's active, this automation will trigger. And I'll show you an example of that shortly. And then for modified, once the ticket comes through, as soon as the ticket comes through, it won't be triggered per se, but it will only take effect when the state of that ticket changes. And we'll talk about the states here. So here we can see our properties. There's two properties. There's the name and state. So since we were talking about it, we'll talk about the state. We'll say it was if it was changed to approaching breach, for example. So if this automation will only come into effect when the ticket has moved from active to approaching breach. And we can get really, really linear with it by specifying that particularly. So I could say changed from active to approaching breach to avoid anything else. And yeah, I could just say if it's been changed in general, send out a notification or have a certain action. But again, I have another example to explore for this as well. And then, yeah, typically on these, oh, almost forgot, for this name one, here you can choose which SLA you want it to apply to. So I have two. I have high priority and security here. So if I just want this automation to apply to my high priority SLA, I'll select name and then high priority. If I just want it to do security, I'll do that one there. So you can make sure you don't have any confusion there as well. Now for do, typically you'd be updating the ticket or sending out a notification, and I'll show some examples for that as well. Let me go to my automations. So let's see the SLA added. I'll show you an example. So here again, we've got an SLA added, and here I just want to know whether the high priority SLA has been applied. Now, if it has been, then I might want to send out a notification. So a high priority ticket has come in. Nothing's changed with it. The state hasn't changed at all. It's still active. But I might want to send out a notification. Now, this was covered in the custom help card section, which was in another training session as well. So feel free to check that out. We won't go too in depth here. But I might want to send out a message to my agent to say, hello, just an FYI, if you could please action this ticket within the amount of time that the SLA has left, it'd be great. So it could be a good reminder to your agents that this is a high priority ticket to let them know. And of course, you could have this via email as well. So that's one use for the SLA added. For approaching breach. Now, for this one, a high priority ticket has come in, but I want to send out a notification when it changes from active to approaching breach. So I've done SLA modified. Of course, it needs to be the high priority SLA. And if it's changed to approaching breach, then I want a notification to go out. And for this one, as an example, I've said this ticket is, and it'll give the state of the ticket. So it will say approaching breach. Please ensure that it is resolved or the requester is contacted and the ticket is either resolved or set to the pending status, not the best sentence there, within the next SLA time left. So I might say 2 days, 1 day, or anything like that. And of course, manners are always lovely. So yeah, with this, I've mentioned please set it to pending status, because if a high priority ticket comes in but some vital information is needed, it wouldn't be fair to breach it if they're waiting on information from the customer or anybody else. So you could just let your agents know that that's available as well. And of course, you could send out the same email notification if you'd like. And a key thing here, I've sent it to the assignee, to that group, and to any task assignees and any collaborators on the ticket as well. So you can really choose what you'd like and who you'd like to know about this change and who's best in place to step in if need be. So those two were covering notifications. Now, for when it's been breached, you might need some more action to be taken. So again, I've done SLA modified, but this time it's in regards to my security one. Um, so when the state has been changed to breached, I'll update the ticket. So these are just a few ideas that I've had with it. So I might want to add a new comment, which would be really nice. You can say this ticket is being treated as a matter of the highest priority. You'll receive a resolution ASAP. So this will go out to the requester and to the assignee, any affected users, any collaborators, just to make sure that they know that it hasn't gone under the rug, that this is being action. So that'd be a nice thing to add there. Um, you can also have the priority changed. I created 1A to be when it's been breached, red alert, everybody on board, all hands on deck. So you might change that and then have all of your agents know what that means, and then anybody that sees that in the queue can hop on it. You might want to change the assignee. In my lab, it's a one-man band, so we won't get very far with that. But in yours, you can, if you have someone that's a go-to for security-related tickets, you could throw it to them, and this might change. You might change that on a monthly basis. Maybe you might have one go-to for 1 month, and another. Just another possible use case that you could use. And then for the due date, you could change that to maybe 4 hours from now, 2 hours from now, 6 hours a day, whatever you'd like. So the endless, you can change it and have that ticket changed to anything that you'd like. So it's really nice to see them integrated. Um, Once again, the world's your oyster with these SLAs and automations. All right, so we'll move on to our reporting. Once again, open to any questions. Alrighty, so we're in our Excel report. So here I've gone to the dashboard of the SLAs. So here, of course, my security isn't being very well used, and my high priorities, all of my tickets are a bit old, so they've all been breached. But you can see a report of what things look like here, which is really nice. And then on this right-hand side, you can choose what else you want to see. So if I want to see it per assignee, I can see it there. If I want to see it by status, I can go there. By priority could be key. By team, be really nice. Maybe by group. And then, yeah, you can just add whatever you'd like there. And also in here, I'm going to have to, actually, let me just move along here. It's my screen. I got it. I think that's it. Yeah. So ticket SLA. So if you prefer a list view like this, you can see all of the tickets that are related to SLAs. So all the ones that have been breached, all the ones that are approaching breach, you can get a report on all of them. So Excel is really nice to interact with it and really measure the performance there. Now, Power BI, we'll touch on that briefly because again, you can catch that in a later training session, and we can see it really nicely here. So we've got our chart, and then we've got a table with all of the info. Again, on the right-hand side, we can exclude and include whatever we like. Include the status. If a template's been applied, again, you can do whatever you'd like to whatever your heart's content. So that's really nice to have as well. Okay, so I believe that is all that I have to cover. Were there any questions? Anything that we've covered so far?
This was very helpful, James. Thank you very much.
Mm.
There's a lot of incredible information. When will this video be made available?
It's usually very, very soon. I'll just tell you as soon as possible. Um, but yeah, it doesn't usually take long at all. We have that link there, so if you check back, then you'll see it
Yeah.
as soon as it's
Okay.
available.
All right.
Sorry,
Perfect.
sorry I can't give you a concrete one there. It
No,
depends on
not a
the
problem.
editing. They gotta make me look a bit better, sound a bit nicer.
Not a problem. Thank you.
No problem, no problem. Thanks, Kareem. Okay. Nice one, all. No problem. So if any questions hit you after our call today, feel free to drop them at help@tikit.ai. And if there's any topics that you want covered that you haven't seen yet and that don't come up in our schedule that you can see on the Ticket Training Tuesdays help article, then feel free to send those via email as well. We'd love to see what you want to hear more about as well. So thanks again, everybody, for joining, and have a great afternoon, morning, wherever you are. And yeah, until next time.